Love is not something natural. Rather, it requires discipline, concentration, patience, faith, and the overcoming of narcissism. It is not a feeling, it is a practice. You think you're in love, but ask yourself, are you really? Or are you simply addicted to the feeling of being wanted? Most people do not love. They cling, they demand, they possess. And they call this chaos romance bidun. But let me tell you something deeply uncomfortable. The kind of love that lasts, it doesn't start in your heart. It begins in your mind, in your will, in your ability to stand alone, and then choose to give yourself to another, not because you need them to complete you, but because you want to grow with them. You see, everyone is looking for the perfect partner, but almost no one is working on becoming the kind of person worthy of real love. And the tragedy? We keep confusing dependency for devotion, loneliness for longing, narcissism for connection. I've spent my life studying love, not the fairy tale kind, but the human kind, the raw, messy, soul-forging kind, the kind that takes discipline, effort, and truth. Love is not a feeling, it is a practice. It's not just an idea, it's a warning. Because if you don't learn how to love with your whole self, then you will chase connection forever and never actually find it. So let us begin. Let us dissect this thing we all crave and so few truly understand. Let us talk about the kind of love that lasts, kind of. When I spoke the words, love is not a feeling, it is a practice, I was pointing toward a sickness in the modern soul. We no longer want to love, we want to feel loved. Instantly, continuously, unconditionally. But that need, that craving, often has so little to do with the other person. It's about us, our neurotic desire to be saved from ourselves. That is the death of love, because when we look to the sensation of love as the proof of its reality, we forget this. Feeling comes and goes. Practice endures. You cannot build a life with someone based on how they feel about you today. You build it on the skill to love them, even on the days they don't deserve much. I learned this not from romance films or philosophical abstractions, but from studying human beings. Their despair, their longing, their false belief that if only they find the right person, they will finally be whole. But here's the truth I will repeat over and over again. Love is a work of art. And like music or poetry or craftsmanship, it requires discipline, patience, humility, and above all, courage. Not the courage to pursue another, but the courage to face yourself. That is the kind of love I write about. Not the fleeting, passion-driven illusion, but the kind that lasts, because this is not the kind of love you fall into. It is the kind you rise into every day. Let us now explore how. Welcome. You are watching Erich Fromm, and I found my voice here because we live in a world that has forgotten what love is. We throw the word around like confetti. We attach it to everything from breakfast foods to brands to people we hardly know. But does this mean we love better now? Or have we lost our sense of what love really demands? Let me ask you, why does so many love end in pain, confusion, or bitter silence? Why is so little of it built to last? Because today we confuse love with intensity, with desire, with being chosen. But real, lifelong love, the kind that lasts, is not about the erosion of the ego. It is about the transcendence of it. And that is the truth most people will never tell you. Because it's not sexy. Because it takes work. Today I want to invite you to take a true journey, not into romance, but into the spiritual craft of love itself. Based on my lifelong research in psychoanalysis, humanism, and the spiritual nature of being, I will walk you through 5 transformative pillars. These are not steps to find love. They are practices to become love. They will provoke you. They will reflect you back to yourself. They will heal the illusion that love is something you find outside of you. And I promise if you walk through these 5 pillars with me, you'll never love the same way again. Let us begin. Number 1, love is an art, not a feeling. Let me tell you something that will disturb the modern mind. Love is not a feeling, it is an art. Just as painting, music, or carpentry require practice, so does love. Yet we treat it as if it is something that just happens to us. Like rain or luck. We think, if I fall in love, I will know what to do. But tell me, do you become a pianist by falling onto a piano? Number, you study, you sweat, you fail, you practice every day until your hands and heart become instruments of precision. Love is no different, and yet we are so deeply unprepared for it. We want the rewards of love without the effort of becoming lovable. In my book, The Art of Loving, I explain this simple truth. To love, you must first master the discipline of love. And that means love is not just a passive emotion, it is an active decision. You must train your mind to understand. You must discipline your desires. You must overcome your narcissism. You must sit in the pain of not always being seen and love anyway. You see, the modern man is lonely. So he searches not for someone to share life with, but someone to fill the emptiness within him. That is not love. That is escape. And as long as you are trying to escape yourself, you will never love someone else truly because you will always expect them to fix you. But love is not a rescue mission. It is a union of 2 individuals who are already standing on their own feet. Without inner strength, love collapses. Without self-knowledge, love becomes manipulation. And without practice, love remains a fantasy, a beautiful, unreachable ideal. People say, but shouldn't love be natural? And I say, of course, just like speaking is natural. But to speak truth, to speak poetry, that takes years of work. Love is no different. And here is the most radical idea of all. You cannot love someone else until you have learned how to love life itself, to greet the world with reverence, to approach existence not as a transaction, but as a sacred offering. Only then can you give yourself to another without needing to possess them. If you want love that lasts, stop waiting to feel it. Start choosing to become it, because there is no shortcut. There is only the long, beautiful road of daily devotion. And now, let us look more closely at what that love is made of, its foundation. The 4 elements that form the architecture of all true mature love. Number 2, the 4 elements of mature love. If you wish to love deeply to love in a way that survives time, disappointment, and silence, then you must build that love on 4 sacred elements: care, responsibility, respect, knowledge. These are not romantic ideals. They are the psychological foundations of all mature love. Let us begin with care. Love is not real if it does not care. Not just for the person's joy, but for their suffering. To love is to be moved by the other's pain. To want to help them grow, not because it benefits you, but because their life matters deeply to you. Without care, love becomes cold, detached, performative. Second, there is responsibility. Responsibility does not mean control. It does not mean ownership. It means the willingness to respond, to show up when it's hard, to carry not the other person, but your part in the relationship. The moment you turn your back on responsibility, you turn your back on love. Third is respect. You cannot love someone you look down upon. You cannot love someone you seek to change into yourself. Respect means that you see the other as they are, not as a tool, not as a project, not as an extension of your identity. It means you want them to become more fully themselves, not more convenient to you. And finally, knowledge. You cannot love someone you do not know, and you cannot know someone if you are too busy trying to be understood yourself. To love is to be curious, to ask, to listen, to observe not just with your eyes but with your presence. Real love does not live in assumptions. It lives in the quiet attention we give when no one is watching. When we learn the fears the other won't admit. When we remember the smallest details, not to use them later, but to hold them sacred. Now understand, these four elements are not boxes to check. They are not tasks to complete. They are like muscles. They must be exercised, strengthened, torn, and rebuilt. Most people seek only the experience of being loved. But to love in this way, with care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge, that requires maturity. It requires the death of your ego. It requires your transformation. And this is why so few relationships endure, because people want the feeling of love, but they resist the work of it. So I ask you now, can you offer this kind of love before demanding it from another? Because when you do, you stop chasing love like a desperate beggar. You become love, and suddenly everything changes. Now, let us go even deeper into the self, because the greatest obstacle to loving another is the part of you that has not yet learned to love yourself. Number 3, loving yourself without narcissism. It is impossible to truly love another until you have learned how to love yourself. Now I must pause here, because in today's culture this phrase has been twisted. Loving yourself is not about affirmations in the mirror. It is not about believing you are special or more deserving than others. It is not about indulging your every whim or cutting off anyone who challenges your comfort. That is not self-love. That is narcissism in disguise. To love yourself means something much deeper. It means to treat yourself with the same care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge that you would offer someone you deeply love. It means to ask, do I nourish my body? Do I challenge my mind? Do I speak truth to myself even when it hurts? Do I forgive my past, not to escape it, but to grow from it? Most people do not love themselves. They either idolize themselves or they secretly loathe who they are. Both are forms of ego. Both are walls between you and real love. In my work, I spoke of narcissism as a psychological escape, a defense mechanism born from fear and inner emptiness. The narcissist does not feel full. He feels hollow. He inflates himself to survive. But this inflated self cannot love. It only performs. True self-love is humble. It is honest. It says, I am not perfect, but I am worthy of effort. I have wounds, but I will not let them become weapons. I matter not more than others, but equally. This kind of self-love is not loud. It is not posted online. It is practiced quietly in the choices you make when no one is watching. Because when you stop seeking love to prove your worth, you start offering love from a place of inner abundance. And that is when everything begins to shift. You stop chasing people who do not see you. You stop begging for crumbs of affection. You begin to set boundaries, not to keep others out, but to protect the sacredness of who you are becoming. You begin to walk with a different posture, not arrogant, not fragile, but calm, solid, whole. And why does this matter in love? Because if you don't know how to be alone with yourself, you'll confuse need with connection. You'll think someone completing your sentence means they understand your soul. But true intimacy doesn't come from filling your silence. It comes from standing together in it. So I ask you, have you taken the time to know who you are? To care for your own soul as you would care for a beloved child? That is the root. And without that root, no love can grow. Now we must face the shadow, because every act of love must pass through the fire of fear. Let us step into that fire together. Number 4 - love versus fear, the inner battle. If I could whisper only one truth into the soul of modern man, it would be this: love and fear cannot coexist. Where one lives, the other dies, and yet we have made fear the architect of our relationships. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being vulnerable, of being seen, of not being enough. So we build walls, not bridges. We guard our hearts like fortresses, believing we are protecting love. But you cannot protect love and imprison it at the same time. The very nature of love is risk. It is to say, I open myself to you, knowing you could hurt me, but I will not let fear dictate how I show up. Most people never make it to this point. They love carefully, cautiously, conditionally. And that is not love, that is bargaining, that is performance with emotional armor. In The Art of Loving, I wrote that mature love is an act of courage, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to bow to it. We have confused comfort with safety, and so we chase predictable partners, repeat old patterns, hide our truth just enough to be accepted, and then wonder why our love feels shallow. Real love is not safe, it is liberating. But to be liberated, you must first pass through the fear of your own exposure. Can you reveal your needs without shame? Can you stand in front of another and say, I am not perfect, but I am here fully and I am not hiding? This is the test. Fear will tell you, do not love too much, they might leave. Love will say, I love because it is who I am, not because I need a guarantee. Fear will whisper, you will lose them. Love will respond, but if I lose myself to keep them, then I have already lost. To love is to risk your ego, to let go of control, to release your image of how things should be, and perhaps the hardest of all, to let others love you even when your wounds say you are unlovable. Many of us are not afraid of giving love. We are afraid of receiving it, because to receive love is to allow ourselves to be seen naked, flawed, real. But the truth is this, no fear can be loved away, only faced. And the more you face it, the more your heart expands. The more your love becomes pure action, not reaction. Not grasping, not running, just being. And when fear no longer rules you, you stop asking, will they stay? You begin asking, can I stay true to who I am, to how I love? That is the real question. And now we move to the most misunderstood truth of all, that real love requires freedom. Yes, freedom, not possession. Let us now enter the final pillar, the paradox of closeness without control. Number 5, freedom in love, the paradox of closeness without control. There is a belief, quiet but deeply rooted, that love means holding on. That to be close we must cling, that to love someone fully we must somehow own them. But I tell you now, the love that lasts is the love that frees. In my book, The Art of Loving, I wrote, love is the active concern for the life and growth of another being. And concern, real concern, is never about possession. It is about nurture. It is about presence. And most importantly, it is about freedom. Real love says, I choose you not because I have to, but because I want to. I do not own you, I accompany you. I do not demand your loyalty, I inspire it. Yet how many couples confuse control with closeness? They say, if you loved me, you wouldn't need space. If you loved me, you'd do exactly what I expect. If you loved me, you'd change to fit my comfort. But what they're really saying is, my love depends on your obedience. That is not love, that is fear, dressed in the language of affection. Love is only real when both people are free to walk away and still choose to stay. Because what is closeness without freedom? It becomes suffocation. And what is freedom without closeness? It becomes isolation. The secret is not to choose one over the other. It is to hold both like two wings of the same bird. Freedom in love means trusting your partner's journey. It means not needing to know every thought, control every decision, or fix every mood. It means letting them evolve even if that evolution challenges your comfort. And yes, it requires immense self-trust. Because you cannot allow someone else to be free until you have learned to feel secure in yourself. That is why mature love begins in the self and then extends outward, not as a chain, but as a gift. You do not clip their wings. You fly beside them. And if one day they soar higher, You do not feel smaller. You feel proud. This is the paradox. The more you release control, the closer love becomes, because what grows in freedom is always stronger than what is trapped in fear. When two people choose one another again and again without pressure, without ownership, what they build is sacred. Not a prison, but a sanctuary. And that is the kind of love that survives time, temptation, silence, and change. Now let us complete this journey. Let us see what life becomes when we live by this kind of love. At first it feels unfamiliar. To love in this way, without fear, without control, without pretending, is not what the world taught you. The world taught you to guard your heart, to win people, to prove your worth, to fit in, to be chosen, to avoid rejection at all costs. But one day something inside you breaks, or maybe something finally wakes. You stop asking, how do I keep them? And start asking, who am I when I'm not performing for love? That's when the real journey begins. You begin with stillness. You sit alone, not as punishment, but as reclamation. You start hearing your own voice again. Not the voice shaped by approval, but the voice shaped by truth. And then you notice you're not as reactive anymore. You don't panic when they take longer to respond. You don't collapse when someone walks away. You don't compromise your soul just to keep someone's body close. You've grown. Because now love is no longer about validation, it's about resonance. You're drawn not to the loudest person in the room, but to the one who listens. Not to the one who mirrors your fantasy, but to the one who invites your authenticity. You stop using people as bandages for wounds you refuse to heal. And you start healing, and love becomes a celebration of that wholeness. Yes, it's slower now. You don't fall, you unfold. You don't chase, you attract what aligns. You don't beg, you express. And if someone cannot meet you there, you let them go, not with anger, but with peace. Because you've tasted a love that isn't addictive, but expansive. A love where freedom and fidelity coexist. Where closeness doesn't cost you yourself. Where presence replaces performance. You no longer fear solitude, because solitude has become your sanctuary. And when someone steps into that space, they're not saving you, they're joining you. That is the kind of love that lasts. Not because it's perfect, but because it's free, because it's conscious, because it's rooted in the soil of two souls who've done their inner work and are no longer afraid to be seen, held, and still remain whole. You see, when love matures, it becomes less about possession and more about presence. Less about how someone fills your emptiness and more about how they share in your fullness. You no longer ask, do they complete me? You ask, do they support the way I grow? And you no longer lose yourself in love. You rise in it. This is not a fantasy. This is not a dream. This is love as it was meant to be. Real, raw, human, holy. So, what now? If all this resonates, if something deep within you whispered yes as you listened, then the next step is not to dream of love, but to train for it. Because the kind of love that lasts is not found, it is built. It begins with you. You cannot wait for someone to come rescue you from your own emptiness. That is not love, that is dependency dressed in romance. Begin instead with self-honesty. Ask, what parts of me are still begging to be chosen? Where do I perform instead of speak the truth? Am I ready to be seen or only admired? You want love? Then become someone who practices it even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it requires radical self-reflection. Practice attention, practice vulnerability, practice choosing people who choose growth, not comfort, not ease, not flattery. And if you are already in a relationship, pause, breathe, ask yourself, am I loving this person or managing them? Because the moment you treat love like a transaction where you give to get, you've already lost its soul. Love is not currency, it's a way of being. And here's the beautiful irony, when you stop chasing it, when you stop trying to earn it, when you stop shrinking yourself to keep it. It arrives quietly, strongly, lastingly. So if you want a love that lasts, stop looking for the right person and start becoming them. And when two such people meet, what they build is not a fairy tale, it is a reality stronger than fantasy. This is not easy, but it is worth it. Every day you wake up and choose growth. Every time you set a boundary with love, every time you tell the truth instead of pretending, you are laying the bricks of a foundation no storm can shake. This is the revolution. Not louder love, truer love, not a love that burns fast and fades, but a love that glows steady because it was built from truth. So here we are, not at the end of a love story, but the beginning of a new way to love, a way that doesn't break you, a way that doesn't make you beg, a way that feels like coming home to someone and to yourself. You see, real love, it isn't something rare, locked away in some fairy tale. It's possible. It's real. It's already inside you, waiting to be lived, not just longed for. And when you love like this, with courage, with patience, with presence, the world around you begins to soften. Because now you're not just hoping for a happy ending, you're living in the joy of an honest beginning. So smile, you're no longer searching, you're remembering, reclaiming, becoming. The kind of love that lasts is not found, it's grown, watered daily by truth, trust, and tenderness. And once it blooms, you'll never settle for anything less again. As I once said, immature love says, I love you because I need you. Mature love says, I need you because I love you. Nah, choose maturity. Choose wholeness. Choose the kind of love that lasts